Hello. It was recently announced that Jodie Whittaker and Chris Chibnall are leaving Doctor Who. And most people often get interested in who is going to be the next Doctor, but for me, a far more important question is who is going to be the next showrunner? I have found it very rude that since Revolution of the Daleks, this rumor has been circulating that Jodie Whittaker and Chris Chibnall were leaving when they were. It turned out to be true, but their era wasn't even coming to an end officially until yesterday. But now that that news is out there, I feel comfortable to talk about this subject. Who would be the perfect showrunner for Doctor Who? Now, there's one thing that I've heard, which is a lot of people are saying Doctor Who needs fresh blood. This could be accomplished with getting somebody who's never written for the show, somebody who doesn't even know anything about it, tell them about the show, and then have them take over. It's very risky, but it could work. The second choice is the most obvious, Crispy Pro for showrunner. Yeah! But besides the obvious great choice of Crispy, these are the names that have been thrown into the ring. There's Pete Mctighy, who wrote Kerblam, Praxeus, the Doctor Who collection trailers, and he writes another show called Discovery of Witches on AMC, which involves time travel and magic. A lot of people have said that he would be an excellent showrunner. But here's the thing. Not only do I not think he doesn't have enough for Doctor Who on his credit, when he does write Doctor Who, it is very much obsessed with the past, or the ideas aren't fully fleshed out. Kerblam seemed to have set up this interesting story about industry and about how unionized work was being attacked. And then at the very end, it made the workers the enemies. And the Doctor gave this phoned-in message about the system. And that just didn't work. As for Praxeus was a better story, but it was still a little lazy. There were loose ends which needed to be tied up. The Doctor Who collection trailers, I'm not too fond of the prospect of Doctor Who becoming that nostalgic and self-referential, so I don't think Pete Mctighy is a really good option. Then another option that has been going around is Vinay Patel. He wrote Demons of the Punjab, Fugitive of the Jadoon, the target story Letters from the Front, which is an extension of Demons of the Punjab, and a lockdown story. But there's not really much on his CV. He doesn't really have a lot of writing credits, and he's not very experienced. The next choice is Joy Wilkinson. Joy Wilkinson wrote The Witchfinders, and that's pretty much it. Another name is Maxine Alderton. She made The Haunting of Via Diodati, and she also has written over 100 episodes of Emmerdale Farm. I don't think she would be a good choice, mainly because we haven't seen as much of her. I do think they should keep her on as a core writer. A contender that I thought of, but recently I have reasoned would not be a good choice, is Rob Schiermann. Rob Schiermann is the author of the very famous Series 1 episode Dalek. He also wrote many big Finnish plays which have come to critical acclaim. He's written The Holy Terror, The Maltese Penguin, The Chimes of Midnight, Jubilee, Scherzo, and my own private Wolfgang from the Doctor Who 100 collection. The reason I would say not Rob Schiermann is because that he is more acquainted with writing short stories and writing books. I watched a stream from Mr. TARDIS when he interviewed him, and he said that he was more accustomed to writing books, and the different drafts of Dalek that he had to write so many drafts because Russell T kept saying it wasn't good enough. And so he shouldn't be the person who is filtering the scripts. Another person who I've heard a lot of people say, in the same vein as Rob Schiermann, is somebody from the Wilderness Years, is Mark Gatus. Mark Gatus has written some for the new show, but Mark Gatus has already stated that he does not want the job of showrunner. Also, he's too nostalgic, like Pete Mctighy. He just loves to revel in what he likes about Doctor Who, and he doesn't tonally account for everything that Doctor Who is in his scripts. But he's very experimental, and I love that. Another Wilderness Years champion is Paul Cornell. Paul Cornell wrote Father's Day in Series 1, and Human Nature and Family of Blood in Series 3. In the Wilderness Years, he wrote these New Virgin adventure novels: Time Worm Revelation, Love and War, No Future, Human Nature, the original, and happy endings. He's written for the comics, and he wrote the Scream of Shalka webcast. Paul Cornell would be an excellent choice, but I'm worried that he too would be too self-indulgent in his nostalgia. Also, I believe I remember in his newsletter, he said he was retiring from writing all sorts of Doctor Who things, but then lockdown came around and he did one or two things, and he's done a Target book here or there. His adaptation of Twice Upon a Time is fantastic. This brings me to the person who I think should be the showrunner of Doctor Who. Now hear me out. Nicholas Briggs. Yes, the guy who does the voice of the Daleks on Doctor Who. If you're not too familiar with Nicholas Briggs' work, this may seem a very out of left field choice, but Nicholas Briggs has done more for Doctor Who than any other person on the planet. Nicholas Briggs started off with a thing called the audio visuals, which was something where he wrote some and played a version of the Doctor known as the Wanderer, or sometimes Fred. Inside jokes. He also caught the attention of BBV, which is a production company that flourished by using bits of Doctor Who's rights in order to give content to people during the wilderness years when the show was off the air. He's also written this fantastic book called The Dalek Generation. He pioneered Big Finish with Gary Russell, doing the Bernice Summerfield range. In case you didn't know, Big Finish is a company which produces audio dramas from popular franchises such as Doctor Who, Blake Seven, Sherlock Holmes, and other classics. They've had the license to Doctor Who for, I think, almost 20 years. And he took over from Gary Russell as creative director of Big Finish, I believe. I'm not sure about that one. He has written 85 Big Finish releases so far, including gems like The Mutant Phase, Creatures of Beauty, all of Dalek Empire, Patient Zero, Unit Dominion, Weird Dawn, Lucy Miller, To the Death, the first 5 stories in the award-winning 8th Doctor box series Dark Eyes, the War Doctor box set, Only the Monstrous, and the War Master box set, Only the Good. He's directed 236 Doctor Who-related Big Finish releases. Let that sink in. 236. For reference, there are 297 stories in the live-action show at the moment. This means he is 61 stories shy of having directed more Doctor Who than visually has been made. Also, so many people I know have said Big Finish is more interesting and engaging than the main show currently is. Imagine if they adapted certain stories, or if they just had that level of boldness. It would flourish to levels we haven't seen in a very long time. The man has a deep and intense love for the show. He helped it stay relevant in the wilderness years. He is the definitive voice of the Daleks, yes, but moreover, without him, the majority of the universe would not have been fleshed out. If one thing has been proven to me, it is that Nick Briggs has a more vivid and vast imagination than half of the population. He knows the heart and soul of the show. I want to take a moment and I want to add something I wasn't sure I was going to talk about. In 2015, I went to a convention in Texas called WhoFest 3. It was my first convention. I won a ticket because my 11th Doctor cosplay won Best Doctor at an event at the British Emporium in Grapevine. I asked Nick Briggs a question that wasn't very easy to answer. He made a joke about it and then he continued on with the panel. After that, someone was very mean to me. This was a time when I didn't have emotional stability to deal with it. I was 16, and this is the first negative interaction I had ever had with a Doctor Who fan. When I was shopping in the gift shop for something from my mom, I saw Mr. Briggs, and he came up to me, and he put his arm around my shoulder. And he said, "Hello, please walk with me." I'm sorry about brushing the question off, but people just didn't like the Paradigm Daleks. It's almost as if he knew that I needed something to cheer me up. We walked and talked for about 4 minutes, and in that time, Terry Malloy, Davros himself, was just walking alongside me as well. It was just the 3 of us having a conversation. It's probably the best memory I have from my teenage years. Nick Briggs truly understands the fan base. He could truly be the showrunner of Doctor Who. Thank you for listening to me.